We have made it to episode 8 of Live, Love, Laugh, the podcast. And we are so grateful to be here. Sean and I were out last week. We had to take a little time to reconnect ourselves. So you guys know that we have been doing this love and relationships thing. So we wanted to take some time to just adjust ourselves as well and take a reset. So this week we have a great guest coming on to help us just figure out some things in love and relationships. But how was your week?
I had a pretty good week. Great week. It's good to be back, everybody. And before we get to our guests, we want to thank everybody that's been supporting us, been on this journey with us. We're very thankful to you guys. We also want you to do us a huge favor, right? And click the subscribe button on YouTube to catch our newest and latest episodes when they release. So it's very important. Yeah. Please subscribe on YouTube, like and share.
Yep. So we just want you guys to know that we have been doing our due diligence. That's a good word, right?
Yeah, it's a
due
good
diligence.
Word. Great word.
To make sure that we bring special guests. We deliver very good messages to you guys that's very informative and helpful. So, in that being said, we have a special guest coming on today, Beth Baker Callen, and she is an executive director for Phase Associates Counseling Center. And she's going to help us just dive into some things that, are helpful in relationships and maybe more, even more things. So just sit back, relax, and we'll be back after this. Guys, so let's sip on this. All right. So I'm searching down my timeline, and then I see this video of there's a woman in Lansing, and her kid is going to a daycare. It's called Tinker Lab, and the workers or the daycare providers, they are neglecting this child, saying things like the baby stinks and black people put food grease in their kids' hair. That's why it's instances where the baby's not being changed or fed like a baby.
Yeah, they didn't want to touch the baby. The lady said that the baby stinks because she black. That's what she said. Yeah. So they was neglecting this 18-month-old baby, making comments that black people put cooking oil in our hair. Wonder where she got that crap from. I ain't never heard of that.
I haven't either. I haven't heard of that either, but it's very just uninformative. But at the end of the day, I would think that they knew they didn't want this black child at the school before they accepted it in.
Well, the owner probably wanted that money, but her workers, they carrying around some dastardly ideas
right,
about
and it's more than one.
What they think black people do. I'm wondering where they get these things. Cooking oil?
Right.
You ever heard that?
I have never heard that. And what's so disturbing to me is how do you take a baby and not change it? So what is the baby like in poop and feces all day? Because they don't want to touch it.
Ain't no telling what they did or didn't do to that baby, And so we don't even know how long this was going on.
Right. And then a mother, she was doing an interview, and was really hard for her to talk about it. You know what I mean? Can you imagine just finding out that your child is in this daycare that you have left? Okay, you chose this daycare so that you could work or go to school or whatever it is that you're doing. And when you're away, your baby is being neglected. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to change it. They don't want to feed it. And it's more than one provider that's doing this to the baby. So I can't imagine that as a mother, because I'm sure she felt just like, how dare I make the wrong decision? Like, this is all her fault.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be like a predominantly white daycare.
Yeah, that's what's in the report, I believe, that it's that baby was one of the few black babies that was in this daycare. But these same people, I bet you they treat dogs like gold. Bet you that.
Yeah, you see those commercials where you gotta save the animals and everything.
I bet you they animal lovers.
Well, back in the day, that's what we were to them. You know what I mean? Animals.
Well,
so, I mean, maybe the baby wasn't even on the same level as a dog.
It wasn't.
Right.
Couldn't have been. And when you dig further into that story, the owner kind of was trying to act like it was no big deal. You know what I mean? Kind of, sweeping it under the rug, so to speak.
And that's crazy to me, because at the end of the day, you accepted a baby into your facility that you knew wasn't welcome there. You know what I mean? Maybe say the daycare is full. Like, say it's full. We're not taking any more clients. Or did you purposely take a child to neglect and treat? It's called Tinker Lab. So if you're living in Lansing, East Lansing, and you are a parent that's trying, a black parent who's trying to get your child some child care, this is not the place. Like, this is not the place. I don't care if they change, like, oh, we fired those people, just to allow that to happen. Because like you said, it had to be more than one occasion for it to even make the news like that. You know what I mean? It was disgusting, very diabolical to mistreat a child because you don't like black people. Because how dare you say it stinks because it's black?
It just go to show you really don't know what's in the hearts and minds of people, what they thinking. Where did they learn? Where did they hear this kind of stuff?
From their parents.
From their parents, growing up in these houses, you just don't know. So you got to be careful with your babies when it comes to daycare and the doctors and the people that you leave your babies in charge of. You got to watch them. Yeah. You really do.
And ask questions. If you taking your baby to the doctor, because people have to know. I think that we have to know that it's not just this. These are not isolated instances. This stuff happens all the time. You know what I mean? So if you're taking your child to a doctor, you really don't know how they feel. Ask questions. Don't let them make you feel like, you asking too many questions, or you stupid, or they know everything. Your child is the most valuable thing that you have.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So it's very important to research these places, research these people. You know what I mean? Ask questions. Ask the other people that go to this child daycare as well. You know what I mean? How's the school? Like, how you like it? Have there ever been any situations, any problems? Rate it. Like, find out, what is it being rated? Look at Google, because people leave reviews all the time.
Yes,
and a lot of times you can find out that there have been problems.
Yeah. So I hope the parents sue the socks off with those that daycare. They don't deserve to be open if they got hiring those type of people.
Right.
So I hope they sue the socks off of them and get compensated for what those workers did to that helpless, defenseless baby.
Yep, I hope they get enough money to send the baby to private school.
There we
or
go.
Get a nanny to come in the house.
There it is.
You know what I mean? Because that's real crazy.
Yeah.
And I know that mom is going to have some real trust issues, like taking her baby somewhere else.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then here's another one. So sip on this, guys. A similar situation. So two young black girls go into H&M. And the manager decides she wants to put them out. Okay, the manager's like telling the security guard that they need to leave. They want to know why. Like, why do we have to go? We're shopping. And the manager like, I don't need a reason why. Like,
Yeah.
you can't be in here. I don't need a reason to put you out of here. Put them out before they get violent. What's gonna make them get violent? They just want to know why they're being put out.
You know, a lot of stereotypes. So that's a case where a stereotype is living in that manager's head. You know, unfortunately, you could have somebody trespass out of a place of business and they don't really have to give a reason. So that's the unfortunate part about it. But that's another case of, this person has a stereotype that black people are violent.
And that's so crazy because these people getting hired everywhere. Like, they are literally everywhere. They in our schools, they in our hospitals, they in our police stations. I mean, and honestly, and this is so crazy to say because, I mean, you guys know what's happening with Trump in office. People that don't like us, they admit it. They show their true colors.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that as well.
I am okay with that. Go on and, and this is, listen, before y'all get to tripping, right? We're not talking about all white people, right?
Yes. The ones that don't want us.
We talking about, y'all know the ones.
Right.
That's who we talking about.
Right, and it's so apparent.
Yeah. So, yeah, I like it when they show their true colors. You know what I mean? I love it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I feel like they should be able to speak their mind.
Right. And speaking of that, so sip on this. And this is very crazy. I'm not sure how old this video is, but there's a lady, and honestly, I'm not even sure what podcast this is, but clearly it's a podcast going on. And this lady, Lena, is on here, and she's talking about white people and their rights, and they're having to share space with us, and about water fountains, and we're gonna show you guys the video. So just take a moment and look at this video. It's really crazy. But
so to your point, since Trump has been elected, and people are becoming more bold. People talking about segregating the races and all that kind of stuff. It's out there in our face now, and I'm okay. Once again, I'm okay with it. I don't want to be in places and spaces where I'm not welcome, not wanted. Let me know.
Right, and it's crazy because we do. Okay, so she's like, okay, we have our own spaces. And we do. Black people do have their own spaces. You'll see where we congregate and, hang out together. But the difference is we don't try to keep them out.
Right.
They're welcome. We treat everybody. We'll welcome anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anybody can come in. They don't want to be in our spaces. And when you see a couple of them in our spaces, it's like, hey, long as they don't say nothing crazy.
Long as they don't disrespect.
We like, stuff, here go to drinks, here go to, we don't mind.
In a lot of instances, we'll cater to them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You know what I mean? Because that's just what we do. We are a respectful people. We're kind, pretty much. We love everybody, to our detriment even. So much that our child can go to a daycare and get abused. So much that our kids can't shop freely. So much that our sons can't drive without being stopped by the police. We love so much that we ignore all of these things that happen to us so that we can fit in because we're trying to be accepted. Right? So we're accepting everyone and we're barely being accepted. And so that whole segregation thing, I'm not mad at her.
I ain't either.
I'm not mad at her. Show us. Like, to me, show me who you are. Show me. Put your sign up.
9 times out of 10, a place where she would hang out at is probably stale and a place I don't want to be anyway.
Well, we do got a little rhythm. It'd probably be a rhythmless place. But that is not the issue. The issue is put your sign up so that we can see where we're wanted or not. It's fine, because I'd rather not come into your establishment than to come into it and be mistreated.
Yeah.
I would rather know that I'm going to a restaurant that doesn't like black people.
Hey, put up the whites only sign.
Yes.
It's cool.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's totally fine. Like I don't think that we should fight this. The problem has been us forcing the conformity. You know what I mean? I don't think that we need to make anybody who doesn't love us or care about us conform to it. You know what I mean? If you don't, it's fine. Put up your sign. Mm-hmm. We won't come in, and where we're welcome, we'll go there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? We'll go there because I mean they do have some pretty good spaces, some pretty good restaurants. But I want to know so my food won't get spit in.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Don't be in the back in the kitchen. You know what I mean? About to spit in my food because you know that I'm table 17. You know what I mean? And you don't like us in your restaurant.
Or rubbing on your private parts and then touching my food. You know?
Right. Anything that's just crazy like that. And that's what happened. If don't let me bring my kid to your school and you know that it's been some type of racism and these kids in here that already then cut some other little black girl ponytail out. You know what I mean? You know that these are problems that's happening. Don't accept us. Don't accept us in if you know that it's gonna be a hard time.
Yeah. Put your signs up.
Yep. Trump he did. I think the DEI thing, I don't think that was necessarily a bad thing. You know what I mean?
We didn't benefit from it really anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of a red herring because that didn't benefit.
But they bring it up. So it's like they bring it up so that they can say why, like, you know, like it's a good thing. They think it did benefit us. So that is the whole situation. They perceived it to have benefited us. So now that it's gone, that's what makes it good because they perceived it for us to be the main beneficiary of it. You know what I mean? They didn't know. They just, when you think of DEI, you think of black people. Yeah. You know what I mean? Oh, we don't have to let them in. We don't have to fill this quota now. You know what I mean? We don't. But we get in on our merit a lot of places.
Most places.
You know what I mean?
Most of the time. But the narrative is that we all are underqualified or not qualified, and so we don't deserve anything. The narrative is that, you know, we're lazy, all of these things, but, you know, we know what it is. Yeah. So put your signs up.
Yeah, put your signs up. I would adhere to them. I promise. That's Scout's honor. If you put up your whites only sign, you got your white only pie, I won't ask for a piece. I promise you. But I do know, you know, a couple places that I like. I hope they like me because some pie is pretty good. Some of that pie is pretty good. But if y'all don't want me to eat it, we won't eat it.
We'll go 35 miles where they serve the N-word pie.
Right. So, on lighter note, let's sip on this. Okay, so we're talking about love and relationships. Okay, so Toni Braxton and Birdman, they're married. Yeah. I did not know that. I didn't know that
either. I thought they had broken up. You know,
I never even knew Toni Braxton and Birdman was together.
You didn't know they was together?
I never knew that.
Well, I knew they were together, but I thought they had. I thought they broke up a while ago, but it came out that they married.
Yeah, they married, and they got married, I believe, and it was like 2018 or something like that. So they got married back in the day.
No. I don't think it was back in the day that they got married. I think it was just last year. They've been together.
Oh, they've been together since 2018.
Yeah, they've been together a minute.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But I guess they got married last year.
And then what I read was a couple of weeks after they got married, Toni filed for divorce. But they had been together, I guess, a while before they got married, right?
Yeah.
So she filed for a divorce a couple of weeks later, citing irreconcilable differences, and this was in essence.
Okay.
But they're still married, so obviously they didn't go through with the divorce, and they're still together.
Yeah. I wonder did he buy her something to call off the marriage? You know, I wonder what happened.
I don't know, but I mean, if they've been together since 2018 or maybe before, I had no idea they were together at all. But just that we're into this love and relationships thing, and to file for divorce 2 weeks after marriage, that's real weird. But guess what? They obviously stuck it out because they still married now, and that's what we need to figure out. That is the formula that I just want to, get people to try to find, like when you're in relationships, because everything is not always great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you will head to that divorce attorney. You know what I mean? You will head there, or you will head to breakup city, or you will just head down a give up path. You know what I mean? But everything is not always roses, and what you see on TV or these stars that you see, they go through stuff. You know what I mean?
They're humans.
Right.
They're humans.
They go through stuff.
They go through. They probably, in some instances, it's probably relationships may even be harder for those.
Right, because they're in a public eye.
In the public eye, or they got resources, more resources than the average person, and so it might make it even easier to walk away. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad that we came up with the Love and Relationship series, and then you guys are going to see Beth come on. She's a licensed therapist and psychologist, and we're just talking about love and relationships and just how to navigate through them. And we wanted to talk about Tony and Birdman because people go through things. I mean, she literally filed for divorce 2 weeks after they got married. Okay, and obviously, like I said, they still together. So it's hope. It's hope in these relationships.
As long as you ain't, putting your hands on folks or a crackhead, you can, it's hope. Yeah.
Not the crackhead.
Not the crackhead.
Well, and I honestly, I'm going to say this, we going to get to Beth, but I think that with the right love, even somebody dealing with addiction can be helped. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, if you got the right love, I mean, if it's both of y'all down the wrong path, that might be very toxic.
Yeah, both of y'all can't be junkies.
Right, you know what I mean? But if you got somebody that's strong and they willing to support you, because, like, what if I just get on drugs? You're going to be like, peace. Or can you send me to the rehab?
Get you some rehab.
Get me some rehab. You love it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I took the wrong drug and now I'm addicted to it. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
Help me out. I don't want to be this. You know what I mean? So many people don't want to be that. And I'm saying that to say, stick with us, guys, because we're going to take you on a whole nother path to dealing with addictions and, what people go through on a day-to-day basis. We're human. Like, we are human people. This is real life. And of course, everybody have opinions. And this is an opinion-based show. You know what I mean? So we have our opinions. But real life is something nobody has a patent on. Okay?
Yeah.
I can go through something and somebody around the corner and 6 blocks up can be going through that same thing. That's why when you go to church and the pastor is talking about some type of sermon or something, you like, is he talking about me? Oh my God, I didn't even tell him that it's not just you. It's
life. A lot of us have problems in common, just, this existence that we share.
Right.
In this life, we have common problems, financial problems, health problems, mental problems, emotional problems. We have a lot in common,
Yeah.
It just go to show you that we're more alike than apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that being said, thank you guys for sitting down with us for Sip on This. We're getting ready to sit down with Beth. She's the licensed therapist and social worker. She gonna, try to help us navigate through some of these relationship things that we all deal with. And before she sits down, we really would like you guys to go ahead, like, subscribe, and share. That's it. We're on all platforms, guys. All platforms. Like, subscribe, and share. Okay, especially on YouTube. We're gonna hit YouTube Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right? All right. All right, so now that we finished our sip, we would like to introduce you guys to our special guest, Beth Baker Callen, and she's going to just kick it with us a bit and talk a little bit about herself and just her counseling center and how she can help us dive into the ins and outs of relationship. How you doing, Beth?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Aisha and Sean, for having me on. It's really a pleasure to be with you all here today.
Thank you. We're glad to have you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I was very excited that I even had a connection for you in my phone because I just want to bring up the fact that you helped me out a little bit with my daughter. She was being a normal teenager, you assured me. I thought she was crazy for a minute, but you let me know that she was a normal teenager, which is, what we're experiencing now. And I was just, happy to know somebody who could just give us a little ins and outs of what's going on with people in general. And because we have this segment going on, love and relationships, and maybe even help us, figure out moves. How long have you been counseling?
Sure. So I've been in the profession of social work for the last 26, almost 27 years.
Wow.
I've had a private practice since 2018.
Wow.
And it's interesting that you talk about how we connected. I'm a relationship-based person, so networking with people and establishing relationships, healthy relationships is really big to me. And so being able to establish rapport with people, and if I can certainly help, then that's a plus, right? It's more than just, hey, how are you? It's no, hey, how are you? How can I help you, right? And that's typically how I lead, how I serve, and how I interact with my patients. And so they become, even though there's professional boundaries that we have, obviously, but they become a part of me because I'm actually pouring me into them. And they have trusted me to do that. And so I take that very, not only do I take it seriously, I'm humbled by that. When people reach out, you can, it's just like a medical doctor. You can go to any provider to receive your medical care.
Right.
You can choose any mental health provider. And so when people reach out, I'm truly honored and humbled. So the relationship that you and I have, I'm not surprised. It's just, it's very organic. And so this is just a part of who I am. And so this is how I run my practice, and just very real, very approachable with people. Because just like your daughter, she's real, right? She's human. Nothing was wrong with her.
Right.
But it's serious. But when you're growing and developing, things are different for everybody. And so you see things differently in a different perspective. And so this is where the art of counseling and therapy kind of helps to separate that out and put a different perspective on that. So.
Okay, good. So what drove you to want to help people? What drove your desire to want to just take people by the hand and try to guide their minds to a better place?
Yeah, I would actually have to attribute that to God. I don't think I just came on the earth. I didn't say, oh, this is what I want to do. I mean, you have to have a heart for this, and only God can give you a heart to really help people in the way in which I believe I helped them. I just remembered as a young child, probably 8 or 9 years old, we used to travel quite a bit when I was growing up in Kentucky. And so my family and my dad was doing a radio show down in Louisville, Kentucky. And so we would travel between Lexington and Louisville. And that was in the early 80s. And so a lot of hitchhikers.
Wow.
And so you would see this, and I couldn't understand why my parents wouldn't pull over and take the said subject.
Right,
we're going the same way down I-7. I think we were in Lexington. We're going down 64. Like, why can't we just stop and pick this person up?
Right.
And so not realizing the safety features and, all that kind of thing. But I just remembered as a young child, like, wow, I wish I had someplace to house him or her as a young person.
Wow.
A young child. And so it's really, I can't create that as a child. That to me is a God-given gift that as I've grown up over the years, and of course academically and professionally, you just hone that skill, that gift that God has given you.
Right.
So that's really where that is. And then, like I said, I'm a relationship-based person, so I enjoy connecting with other people. There is no like redemptive glory in people's pain. I'm not excited that you're sad. I'm not excited that your loved one passed or that you just got diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Right.
But I am excited to be able to connect with you, to be able to help you persevere through that.
Right.
That's what feeds me. And hopefully it can, help the other person. So that's really kind of how it all got started just years ago. I mean, like I said, I was a young child. And then when I was matriculating through my undergraduate work, I was a resident assistant, in the residence halls. And so I felt like I was always counseling, the residents. I was always talking, I worked in I lived in an all-girls residence hall there on the campus of Central Michigan University. Fire up, Chips. Any Chippewas are listening. But a lot of women have different issues, different from our male counterparts. And so whether it was eating disorders or depression or body imaging and things like that, wasn't licensed at the time, right? I'm 18, 19, 20 years old myself, but always been in a position to really help people and to serve people. So for me to do it professionally, it's no mystery.
Would you say you're like a magnet for people to just come talk to you and tell you their problems and stuff?
Yeah, sometimes, that's a good problem to have, because it's like the word counselor or therapist written right here. But I believe that's just the way my spirit is. And so people, when people are hurting, they look for, they're trying to get out of pain. It's just like if you're hungry, you're looking for food. And if I don't know you and I'm really hungry and you have like a piece of fruit or a bag of chips, I'm going to ask a total stranger, can I have some of that? Or if I'm thirsty, I'm like, can I get a bottle of water? Even if I don't know you. So I think when people discern that you can help them, which is what I kind of carry, that's a gift that I carry, that pain it's like equated to the solution, right? The problem is like, oh, I think that person may be able, again, that's all God. There's nothing I can do. No amount of marketing or strategizing I can do. I mean, I certainly can do that. But that's not really necessary, because I just feel like God brings me to the people that I need to work with and to really service, whether it's through word of mouth or professional referrals. If you know me, then you may refer me to somebody else, and then that's just how it grows. And so I welcome there's teams of people that help me with marketing and publication and things like that, but a lot of it is just organically done because people are like, oh, I heard you can help.
Beth.
I know Beth. And so again, I'm very humbled by that,
right?
Because there's a lot of money spent in this industry with marketing, and that still doesn't mean people are going to trust you with their personal business just because you have an amazing website or because you have this awesome logo, right? It's about the relationship. And so that's to me is what makes me not so much different, right? There's a lot of colleagues in this industry, but one of the things that I can truly say that makes me unique is that I'm going to connect with you in a way that I'm going to not dismiss you or judge you, but to really encourage you to be the best version of yourself with the information that you give me. Because I'm not only listening to what you tell me, I'm actually listening to what you're not telling me also. But again, that's a gift.
Right.
How do you, and I might be jumping a little ahead in this interview, but I was just sitting here listening to you, and you take on, obviously, a lot of people's problems.
Yes.
How are you able to separate their problems from, how do you separate that from home? Do you? Sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. It's a great question, Sean, and I still struggle with that. Okay. But I think overall, I am able to set healthy boundaries, right? I do keep clinical hours, usually between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. That's when I'm available to, whether it's return a text message or a call or deal with the patient. And typically anytime beyond 8 o'clock, I'm trying to shut it down unless there's a patient of mine that's in a serious crisis. I'm talking about suicidal or just experience some type of traumatic event. Then I will, show up to the scene or take a call, even from a family member, of a patient. I'll do that. But as far as self-care, we hear that term. It's really catchy, but what does that really mean? And full transparency, I don't do that as well as I should, because I'm so much concerned about you. But so really making sure I have proper nourishment, proper exercise, proper rest. That's a big piece that I have discovered as I've gotten just a few years past 18, that I have to get an adequate amount of rest, sleep, not just to be in the bed, but to actually rest the mind, the body. So that's a big piece that I'm constantly trying to improve on myself, because I'm trying to coach other people and encourage other people to take care of their mental health. Really being able to be compassionate to my patients, but not to digest what's going on in their worlds. That is really have taken a lot of skill over the years. I recently was working with a patient that was suicidal, and that bothered me for a couple hours after the session. And so I reached out to say, hey, can you text me, let me know what you're going to do? I really wanted her to go to the hospital. She wasn't willing to do that, but was willing to get to a place of safety at a relative's house. And so she, later that night, she did text me. Again, those are appropriate, those clinical boundaries that you have to just determine on your own. Can I overstep, right? But I can't do that all the time, right? Everybody has, my patients, once we've established our relationship, I give them my direct number. It's because when you're in pain, when you're in need, you probably can't wait for the next 2 weeks until your scheduled appointment, or a month out, right? And so no one, fortunately, has abused that relationship. But if this is like if you were ill and you call the doctor, isn't it the worst to get the doctor on call? Don't you want like your own provider, whether it's your MP or your physician or whatever? Now, I'm human, so obviously there's times when I'm not able to take a call or not able to respond as quickly as I'd like to. But to be able to just, if it keeps you from going over the deep end, that I can respond to a text because you asked me, what should I do in this situation? Then I'm going to text you back. If it means I give you my phone number because it's a number for comfort if you have to go to court, or if you have to go, bury a loved one, and you're so full of anxiety, knowing that you have my number locked in your cell phone, if that provides you comfort, then I'm going to give you my number.
So I heard you say your practice is mostly relationship based, so I'll assume that's all types of relationships, mother, daughter, brother, sister, couples, which is what we really want to dig into now. So in that, how do you, have you seen how many couples have you counseled?
Ooh, that's a great question. Probably too many to count. I mean, we're talking in the hundreds of people over the last, like I said, I've had this practice since 2018. So there's a lot of people that I've helped over the years. But to your specific question, as far as relationships, we're talking about individual services, therapy, marriage and family, couples, not just married couples, but just couples of all types of ethnic backgrounds, all types of socioeconomic backgrounds. Some people come to me, they're court mandated. Some people are on their own accord.
Do you do any premarital counseling?
I do.
Okay,
I do.
Cool.
I do premarital counseling. There's a nucleus of that, a group of people, I guess, that I provide a service to. I do a lot of I think the couples, when we zone in on that particular population, a lot of the couples that I've worked with have been married for a number of years, and I feel like some of them have kind of gotten to a stagnant place in their marriage or in their relationship, and so it's usually they're coming to me probably should have come much sooner than they probably reached out, but that's most people, right? We wait, we think the problem's going to get better, we think it's going to go away. And it usually doesn't. It either stays or it just gets worse.
And that's what I was wanting to know. I had been thinking about, what could I really ask you? But one of the things that I really want to know is, what are some of the most common breakdowns that you've seen, in relationships, the most common things that tear up the relationship?
Great question. So one of I always group things in themes, right? So the biggest theme that I probably see the most is the lack of couples' ability to set realistic expectations of each other, first of all, of themselves, and then of each other. So for instance, let's just use something clearly, just as an example. We look at social norms, right? So where it's the assumption that the woman is going to prepare the meals, or the woman is going to help be the more dominant one in rearing the children. The husband in the relationship or in the marriage is going to work or is going to fix things that break physically in the home. Those are social norms. Those are not necessarily expectations in your own individual marriage, right? Maybe, Shon, you're going to be the one that's going to cook the majority of the time or make sure that there's food, provided for the family. Or maybe you're going to do more of the rearing of the children. But usually where I see the breakdown is not discussed. It's not discussed before marriage. It's not discussed in the earlier years. And it's not discussed through. It's, well, I thought you were going to do that.
Right.
Well, so a lot of assuming is going on now.
So it's like these invisible expectations.
Absolutely.
Like what you thought that this person was going to do because you thought that was what they might have thought was their duty.
Yeah. Or even
without talking
before, or sometimes it's aesthetics. It's like, wow, you looked like you were all well put together when we were dating. So I assumed that you had really great credit. I didn't know that your credit was really sour.
You were buying me things, and now
until we went to perhaps get a mortgage, or we tried to rent an apartment or a condominium or whatever the purchase is. I thought you were, maybe it's with faith, I thought you really were a godly person because you always talked about God. You went to church every week. You were in church a lot. But wow, I noticed the behavior doesn't exhibit anything of a person of faith. Wow, who is this? What is this?
Right.
So it's these expectations that are not set early on, and expectations can shift, obviously, but you at least need to initially set them, not only for each other, but you need to set them for yourself. What are you hoping to gain out of that marriage? Right? You have to ask yourself, what was the reason that you even got married? Some people have some interesting reasons why they said I do, right? And it's not for me to be critical of that. If that works for the two of you, then that works. But have the two of you discuss the why, right? It wasn't like, oh, you're so pretty, oh, you're so handsome, let's you want to spend a lifetime together. It's like, no, what are your values? What are your principles? What are your morals? What are your beliefs? Even what are your triggers? What sets you off? Wow, I really thought you were a quiet, passive person until I saw you clown, for the lack of a better term, in a public venue, right? So that's really where I see the biggest breakdown in marriages and in relationships in general. There's no expectation set, and if it is, they fail to share that with the other person.
And we're in the day social media is dominant.
Yes.
Are you finding that social media is playing a large part in marriages, the breakup of marriages, things of that nature?
Great question, Shon. I'm finding that social media, and not to dismiss social media, it's good for what it's good for, right? It's modern technology. It's great for a lot of different things. But I think the downfall of social media as it relates to marriages, relationships, families, and even individuals, it causes us to judge ourselves or use social media as a guide. So if I can look at, my sister Aisha, she's beautifully dressed, but if I look at her and see her post on social media, I am likely to think that she looks like that every day, all day, and when she wakes up, and maybe she does, right? Fabulous.
Yeah, I
right?
do.
But the reality is that she probably doesn't. And so if I don't have my hair together or my makeup is not in on point, right? Or my clothes are not together, we see that. Same way with the relationship. The majority of people post on social media happy times with their spouse. When was the last time you had an argument with your spouse and you posted a recording or came on live and said, well, let me tell you what he just did, or let me tell you what she just did? No, it's always the lovey-dovey stuff. So it can be a false sense of reality, right? And so we don't typically talk about the adverse situations that are happening with us. And people have the right to withhold that and to keep that private. But I really believe personally there's something to be said about disclosing certain things, right? And not to, I'm a woman of faith, so I make no apology about that. But I think going back, we're overcome by the power of our testimony. So I'm going to share with you some not so good things that have happened to me, right? I was a part of an anthology book when COVID released, and so we talk about the women in the book and myself. We talk about our pains and some of our woes that really hit us and knocked us off our square. I being one of them. And so when people look at me, if you're if you look at me and say, oh, wow, your hair is nice or your clothes were put together, that's fine. I'll receive that as a compliment. But let's really talk about what really goes on behind this brain. What really happened to me in my heart that got me to this point? And we can talk about that a little bit further in the broadcast in terms of what the origin of how I even started Pace and Associates, right? It wasn't for me just to have something extra to do or to generate another stream of income, but really the why is, to me, more monumental than anything, right?
You know, you talk about being a woman of faith, and it brought something else up in my head. I grew up in the church, you know, and therapy and talking about it or going to see a professional, that was a thing you would consider maybe a little crazy.
Yes.
If you went down that path. We were taught, or it was taught, or the narrative was pray about it.
Especially black people.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? And so, of course, I think as a people we've evolved somewhat. I hope so. You know, are you finding that the folks are more open to going to see a therapist, going to see a psychologist, a psychiatrist? You know, are you finding we're more open to that now?
We are. That you bring up a really great point, because historically you were right. You know, growing up in the church myself and being a daughter of a pastor, you know, that's very, you know, God will fix you, we will pray for you, we will love on you, or whatever. And you're right. You know, sadly, mental health professionals, as myself, definitely wasn't something that you would run to. And if you did, it wasn't talked about. I mean, now people are posting their therapists, hey, I'm in therapy on social media. That was not something that was historically, particularly within the African American culture, that was definitely not supported. I see a huge flip. We still have quite a bit of ways to go. Where I see the change is in our men. I'm working with more men, which is great, because sadly, men were taught as young boys, you fall off your bike, or you fall off the porch and you bust your knee, get up and shake it off.
That's right.
If your daughter falls off her bike, let me come over there and rub it and kiss it, right? But why is his knee that's busted probably in just as much pain, if not more, than the little girl? So those are the norms that I'm talking about that we live into. So you carry that into your manhood. Really, if I'm having a struggle with my relationship, or having problems at work, or having, you know, some type of issue, you know, because of physically I'm ill and I'm not able to sexually perform, I'm probably, the likelihood of me going and sharing that with another person is probably going to be very bleak. Yeah. So I'm definitely seeing an increase, but there's a ways to go.
So because of the way that you mentioned how men and women were growing up, how, you know, boys had to handle their emotions a little differently, do you think that that's one of the issues in relationships and marriages, where men can't really express themselves the way that women do? Yes. I mean, we had an episode about men's emotions, and we won't go down that rabbit hole. But do you think that a lack of emotion or too much emotion in a relationship from the man could cause the breakdown? Like, what is enough or what is too much?
Yeah, that's a great question. But I think it's because, again, we haven't been taught and encouraged as younger children, younger people, to express yourself, right? I enjoy speaking to a 5 or 6 year old and asking him or her, how are you? Most people will just dismiss them. Oh, they're cute. Or, no, how are you? And you say, I noticed you're crying. What's wrong? What's the matter with you? I encourage you to express yourself. So sadly, by the time we get to an age where we're married or heavily involved in a committed relationship, no one has really stopped to ask us that. So it's going to be real scary for me to express myself truthfully when I may have lived in an environment where people weren't openly talking about how they felt. We'll use anger as an emotion. Anger is a healthy emotion. Most people don't entertain it. Why? Because it's the behavior that comes with the anger. You're slamming cabinets, throwing stuff down.
Right.
Right? Or maybe you just march off and be on your own. But that's an emotion that we dismiss. So to what you're asking me, you have to be able to express yourself. That's a part of humanity, being a human being, right? And who better to express yourself than the person that you're the closest with, your life partner, right? So there's a balance there that we've missed the mark there.
Right, right. Because I'm just thinking about how you mentioned how the expectations might not be there, or they're unrealistic because there was never the conversation.
Yes.
So by the time that you decide that you want to marry a person, or this is your person, marriage or not, and you haven't had that conversation, and then all of a sudden that big can of worms popped open, and now you realize that this person does have an anger problem or an emotion problem that you didn't see before. You wouldn't have learned that maybe in a conversation.
Correct.
But what are some of the signs or clues that you might pick up on when somebody is not very emotionally stable in order to maintain a healthy relationship?
Sure. No, that's a great question to look at that. When we talk about, in the clinical world, we look at triggers, right? And so sadly, some people don't even realize they're triggers until you're faced with a situation. So really looking at the state of a person's mental health is based on your ability to balance. And what I mean by that, so just real briefly, so if we're looking, I have my minors in exercise science, so going off into this world of health, right? We usually look at body mass index. If we're looking at weight, what's too heavy, what's underweight. There's a certain, of course, we know there's an overweight, but there's such a thing as being underweight. So we use that, right? When we look at our mental health, we use, a diagnostic statistical manual, the DSM-5, which is just a manual that's used to diagnose mental disorders. That's a guide. But the question is, okay, well, how do I maybe balance my spiritual health? Well, if you're a person of faith, you may use the Bible or the Torah, whatever your tool is. But I think as it relates to when you ask me the question, how do I know if a person is balanced or emotionally stable or not, it's really what boundaries have they set for themselves? Are they even staying within that? Right? Are you getting upset just because I ask you to move your shoes that were at the door because I almost tripped? Are you cutting my head off because I asked you to turn up the heat in the house because I was cold? Right? It's those traditional everyday tasks that we do when you notice the person is not answering or responding within the confines of what you have deemed healthy. It's probably something else going on, and it doesn't mean that the person is quote crazy. We use that word so loosely. Oh, they're crazy. We
do,
right? We're so loose with that, right? But that's a very guarded word. I want us to be careful with that, because typically when people are reacting in a way that's extreme, 9 times out of 10, it's something going on with him or her, right? But again, we don't take the time to listen to hear. We want to listen to respond. Stop doing that. No. Why is that child constantly crying? Let's talk. Why is my spouse coming home and is always angry, right? Maybe because he just got berated, at the plant. Maybe, the office just let him go and he doesn't know how to share that with the family, right? There's typically always something going on. We as human beings don't just fall out of the sky. We have an origin. We're hooked to something and someone, right? So typically it's something else going on. I mean, we'll use myself. I don't normally sound like this, right? I have a raspiness in my voice right now because I just had a bad case of laryngitis, but that's because something else was going on. Oh, Beth was sick prior to this. Oh, is that why her voice? Yes, it was something going on beforehand, but we have to ask each other, oh, I noticed something different about you. Would you like to share that, right? So we have to just take the time to listen to one another and adhere to one another. How many times you've gotten on an elevator with a random stranger and you say, good morning, how are you? Do you really want to know how that person is? Probably not. It's just elevator talk. Most people are not able to respect silence, so they got to say something.
Right.
When I get on the elevator, good morning, how are you? If you tell me I'm not having a great day, I'm going to pursue and ask you why. Because it's something I can help you with, right? But most people, we're just so quick. This world is a very quick. Everything is fast. Everything is microwavable, popcorn, quick. Get it in, get it done. How you doing? You good? No. If somebody says I'm not okay today, what's your response? It's typically, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. No, what's going on? Would you like to talk? We don't make time for one another. And so in therapy and in more of a formal setting, there's time. It's allocated. It's scheduled, right? But we have to do that within our own relationships, because I can't be with all my patients all the time. I can't travel with you. I can't be in your home. I can't be. So it's really making the time for what's really important.
So what happens when you get into a relationship with a person who's not very communicative? Like they are within themselves, you like them, you know, you have a good time with them. Oh, we hit it off. We were able to enjoy a meal quietly. You know what I mean? And I like that about them. So, you know, sometimes you get those type of relationships where somebody respects that there's peace, because they don't really have to talk that much. You know what I mean? They don't have to communicate that much, and that's what they liked. So what happens when you get that type of relationship where there was not that much communication and that was something they liked, and then now, oh my God, what happened?
Yeah,
you know
when something
what I mean?
major happens. So it's really important to ask the person, what is their love language? What is your style? Right? Because then this goes back to that effective communication. And this is where counseling really teaches those tools. It provides you with those tools to take in your toolbox, as I call them. Because you may not be a big talker, right? And I'm not going to make you talk. You can't make me do anything. You can ask me, right? I can say, Kay, can you give me a hug? You can do that, but you may not want to. I can't make you want to. That's from the inner spirit. That's the inner workings of a person. So as far as communication, maybe your style is written. Maybe your style is, some people are like, well, I got more out of my spouse when we text back and forth. That may be your style, right? You may need to write a letter out. Maybe it's allowing them to come to you in their own way. But what you cannot do is force anyone to do anything. They're not, because what'll happen, you can force them. It's not going to be organic, but they're not going to want to do it. And so probably there may be a reason that they are guarded, where they taught how to express themselves in a safe environment. One of the terms I use, is setting the stage for people to be what's called psychologically safe. Okay, so for example, if you're in a classroom and most of us have been in some classroom in our lifetime, whether it's been elementary school, middle, high, formal, secondary ed, or whatever the case is, or you can be in a webinar at work. How many times have you wanted to ask a question, but you felt like people were going to laugh at you, or you're stupid, you should have known that. But there's probably 10 other people in the class that were hoping that you asked because they had the same question.
Right.
So it's up to the professor or the teacher or the lecturer or whoever is facilitating the class to make the environment physically and emotionally safe, right? So when it's safe to do that, then people will typically ask questions. So same way in a relationship, if you feel psychologically safe where your spouse won't tease you, like, what, you don't know the answer to that? No, oh, babe, I didn't know you didn't know that. Let me show you how to do that. Or I didn't know you weren't aware of that, right? But when we giggle and laugh and dog one another in a relationship, right, it's going to be really difficult to really sit down and talk about some heavy hitters like finances or housing or moving or things of that are a little bit more heavier than what are we watching on Netflix tonight, right? So you really have to create an environment that's psychologically safe for yourself and for the other person. When people ask you, people put different sauces on their food, or you're like, oh, I didn't know you put ketchup on your eggs. Well, if that's what I like,
let me buy you some ketchup.
Right. But what happens is we typically won't eat in front of the other person because we don't want to be teased, even as adults. It's not fun to be teased, particularly about heavier matters, right? So you really, really have to search yourself. But most of the times we do that is because we're not strong enough emotionally within ourselves, right? You've heard the expression, hurt people, right? Very, very profound, very profound. And so in order to be okay with your spouse, you have to really be okay with yourself.
Well, you sharing some nuggets here tonight, and I'm hoping that you guys that's watching, you're able to use some of these tools to help with your relationships, right?
I want to dive into problems.
Okay.
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 So, I mean, I know that in your profession, when people come to you, a couple come to you, they want to fix their relationship.
Sure.
My question is, what are some deal breakers? Like when I can't imagine that every couple should be together. Okay,
Sure.
should stay together.
Yes.
So what are some deal breakers? And then we'll go back and talk about fixing things.
Okay.
But I really want to talk about the problems that are deal breakers because, I mean, we've been watching the news. We've been seeing all kind of situations where the spouse or the girlfriend is hurting kids or doing weird things, just uncontrollable things or unforgivable, diabolical things.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And at the risk of saving a relationship, how do you say this ain't it? You know what I mean? What are deal breakers to say you guys shouldn't be together? Like, this is not it.
Yeah, I very rarely, if ever, tell a couple that they shouldn't be together. That is a personal decision. I never want you to come back and say, Beth told us that we need to no longer be, right? I always make recommendations to people, whether it's an individual session or it's in couples counseling or what have you. But what I do, I set the stage for you to really see some things in a different way than what you probably are viewing it. So when we're dealing with issues of abuse, deal breaker. When we're dealing with things of even mental abuse, deal breaker, right? And so one of the things I encourage people to do when we go through this in couples counseling is really to create 4 foundational principles for yourself. And the reason why it's 4, because typically that's how much it takes to build anything, right? 4 corners to a room, you have to have the foundation to build it, 4 beams, right? So you create 4 of whatever you feel is best for your marriage. So for example, it might be trust. Some couples don't need trust in a marriage to make it work or in a relationship to be. Now, there's a lot of people in relationships. The key word is healthy relationship, right? So I use that as a barometer. So to what you're saying, some people stay longer than probably what they should from what I can see. But when your 4 principles have been violated, whether it's, I'm just using some, whether it's trust or commitment, love, respect, when those 4, and those are just 4, there's to be so many others, it's individual based. But when those principles have been shattered, it's not that it's not salvageable or redeemable, but if you're not working to rebuild those 4 principles, it's gonna crumble eventually. Now, it may take a year, 2, 5, 10, even 20. I've worked with couples that have been together over 30 years, and they're like, "This is not working." Problem is, it probably hadn't been working. But what type of work, really intentional work, was being put forth to rebuild that? A lot of people stay for, well, it's staying for the children, or it's more fiscally prudent for me to stay. It's a two income family. Right, I don't know what I'd be able to do if my spouse left because I'm governing myself based on this income. It's not a real good reason. I understand. Yes, we're in a day and age where prices of food are high. Real estate is off the charts. But the reality is, you have to live with yourself and you have to live with this person day in and day out. To be that level of misery. Again, that's a personal decision that you make, but when you talk about deal breakers, when those 4 pillars or foundational principles have been altered to the point where they're not being repaired or there's not a desire to repair, you probably should reconsider that relationship. Because what happens is, particularly marriage, from a faith-based perspective, it's a holy institution. It's something that's very holy and sacred. So anytime that is become violated, you really want to be cautious of how you move forward. Even when we deal with, I have couples that I work with that have, infidelity has come into the relationship. That's not something that's non-redeemable, but for some people it's not, right? But there has to be a level of turn and go another way instead of just saying, well, I did it once and she's going to love me, so I'll just continue to do this. Because what's happening, not only are you tearing down the person, you're tearing down the confines of that institution, right? It weakens the fabric of it. And so then again, you can still say we're still married, but how healthy is your marriage? And so that's one of the things. It's like eating food. Yeah, we all eat stuff, but are you eating what's healthy for you that's going to be beneficial to your growth and development? It's the same way mentally. What are you feeding yourself? What are you feeding a relationship? And if there's children involved or other people involved, what behavior are you wanting them to mimic that they're seeing you? And children sense when parents are not in the best of settings, or the partners in the home are not on the same page, right? Because why, you say, Beth, why do they sense that? Because they're human too. We have a sense, right? God has given all of us, we call it that gut feeling. I call it the God conscious, right? We know when something's off, a little off. Now, people try to shield things and shelter their children. I understand that. But after a certain point, to say we stayed for the children when the children are screaming on the inside because they just really want peace in the home that they're living in. So really have to be careful when we say we're staying for other reasons other than why we got married in the first place.
So in your I don't want to say experience because I don't know about that, but in this line of work, have you seen where there are couples who 100% recover and have thriving relationships in instances where there have been infidelity or physical abuse or mental abuse, and they've just turned it around? Or, I mean,
that's a great question. Yes, the redemption couples are there. Yes, it takes a lot of work, though. I'm thinking of a couple in particular that I've been working with for almost 2 years. There's a lot of different issues in that relationship. But a lot of it was what they brought into the relationship, what they brought into the marriage had not been dealt with individually. And so they brought that into the marriage, and now it's a bigger issue because you're talking about merging two lives and two families. It's a blended family situation. A lot of work has gone in. It's not so much that I'm working with them, but the work is on the couple, right? I'm just the invitee, guiding and coaching. They're doing the work, right? You all have to do the work. And so, but yes, there are several patients that kind of come to my mind that have been able to get past a lot of the hurt and a lot of the pain that they may have caused one another, particularly in the cases of infidelity. I see that quite often. That's a common theme. And it really boils down to the spouse that was hurt the most. Have they forgiven? Have they been able to release that pain so they don't continue to live in the past? Well, remember what you did a year ago. Well, I'm always blowing your phone up because remember how that night you didn't come home? It's being able to release that and really reestablishing that trust. It takes a lot of work, but yes, those couples do exist.
Okay.
Are you finding in relationships the childhood traumas that people, haven't resolved? Does that contribute a lot to these troubled relationships?
That is a huge proponent of a contributing factor, rather, to some of the issues that I'm seeing in these couples. A lot of that is childhood trauma that sadly is coming out in therapy. And the other piece that's even shocking is that oftentimes the other spouse knew nothing about it. I didn't know that you were abused as a child. Is that why when I go to hug you or hold you, you're so standoffish? Or is that why, when I go to reach for you, it's almost like oh, please, And so that's just one example of many that I see. Very sad to see that unfold in a session, particularly when the other person knew nothing about it. And oftentimes I try to encourage couples to not use therapy as a time to just air everything in front of as though I'm their savior or the safeguard. Well, we can say this in front of Beth. And what I'm discovering is that, is this the first time you're hearing about this? And oftentimes that happens. I can handle it, but usually the other person is blown out the water because they knew nothing about it. And so I can only imagine what that car ride home is like.
Wow. Right. Because you were like you said, the safe place. So they were afraid to mention it. But there's a reason, of course, that somebody would be scared. So if this is your person and you feel like you can't talk to them, there had to be some underlying reason why that might have been the first time it came out. Because maybe we talked about something before and you didn't handle it well.
Yes.
So now I have to wait till we're sitting with Beth
Sure.
so that we could talk about it, because I'm afraid that you will react in this way.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's not a physical fear of the person that they're going to physically hurt them or harm them, but it is the emotional, the mental response, because a lot of times the individual is dealing with so much guilt and shame and pain that it's like, how will you receive me now? Will you look at me different? If I told, let's just take, and sadly, women and men have been victims of rape. It's not just, sometimes we have this stereotype that just only women are sexually assaulted, but men unfortunately are too, even as young children, young boys or whatever. And so how would you view me if I disclosed to my spouse that I was raped as a child? Will you no longer be attractive to me? Right? And so that's the fear that they have. It's not necessarily, and then it's that fear, but it's will you stay? Right? I'm a lot of people are prone not to share because I've never shared that with you, and I've never seen you respond to that, because guess what? I've never told you. So that's a big step I'm having to take. So if I have to take it, if I'm going to take it, I'm going to take it in front of Beth, right? Because that's another safety net, which is fine. I'm going to coach you through that moment, which I've done numerous, too many times to count. But I think, again, going back to that term, being psychologically safe with each other, so that when you come to therapy, it's, she told me last night, this is what happened to her when she was 7 years old, or this is what happened to him when he maybe served in the military, or what have you. And we're able to move from that point. Like I said, oftentimes I'm seeing people wait until they get to therapy and say, well, we were just going to wait and talk to you about it, which is fine. But I don't have to live with you. You see what I'm saying? You have to live with yourself every day. And so that's really where I encourage people to have some of those difficult conversations.
Right. Do you think that's important? Like, so say somebody been living with some sort of childhood trauma, and they don't want anybody to know about it. It could be causing problems in the relationship. Maybe they don't know that that's what's causing the problems because they never talk to anybody about it. But do you think that it's important to talk to your spouse about every trauma or things, or should you hold some things? Should you, is that bad if you don't want to talk about things that happen?
Yeah, it's not that it's bad. So the theme that I'm hearing, what you're saying, that I'm pulling from that, you have to be willing. There's a certain level of vulnerability that, again, these are the components of a healthy, keyword, healthy relationship. Sure, you can go through your whole marriage and not tell your spouse anything that happened to you before y'all got together. People do it every day. But again, I question the state of that relationship or that marriage, because disclosure of not only just pains, but of even pleasures can draw you to closer to the other person, right? When you share that, maybe you didn't matriculate through the second grade. Well, I didn't know you were in the second grade. I didn't realize. It doesn't matter now because I know you graduated high school, right? But I didn't know that you may have had a complex all your life because people thought you were dumb. And so that when I question you in a marriage, you go off on me but I didn't know you struggled from something in second grade.
Right.
I didn't know you were held back. Right? So again, this is why a level of disclosure, again, know your person. You're listen to what you're doing. When people say I do, and this is where the severity of it comes in, it's not something cute for the day or for the week or for the moment. Oh, we got married. When you get married, again, in a healthy marriage, you're bringing all of that, all of you, literally, not compartments of you, not a portion of you, right? When you go to a restaurant and order a meal and you look at the menu and it says your entree comes with 2 sides and a soup or salad, would you not be upset if they came out and said, well, here's your entree. Well, where's the soup and salad? Well, where's the sides? Well, we just decided not to just serve you that. But I'm paying for this? So paying in a marriage is, I got my life hooked up to you. Right. This is what we decided to do. So I need all of you. Go. It's okay. This is why you don't enter into such an institution lightly.
Right.
It's not about an age. It's not about but it is about a maturity level, because the seriousness of it. And I think, sadly, with the divorce rate being as high as it is in our society, people don't realize the severity of it, and therefore they don't put the work in that is necessary to really maintain a healthy relationship, right? Again, I've seen couples married 10, 15, 20, 30 years, not healthy at all. They just say they've been married for 25 years. People think it's cute to be like, oh, we're having our 25th anniversary. We wanted to have a party. But the last 24 of them completely shattered.
Right.
Right? Just so they can post, like you said, Sean, on social media. Really? And so people see that like, oh, they're so happily married. Well, they're really not. They just wanted to be able to have that 25th party and post it, right? And it's like, no, just the and I'm not knocking social media. I'm on social media. I encourage people to follow on social media. It has its great networking and abilities and things of that sort. A lot of good information has been derived from social media, but you want to be healthy within yourself and be able to glean who you are before you start trying to glean your life out of some, and try to use somebody else's life as a standard for your own, particularly as it relates to your marriage, because you have no idea, and I mean no idea, what that person or that couple is going through. So be careful when you see images. And I'm not saying that people that post are not being realistic or not being true to themselves, but there's other sides of that. We're humans. We're complex creatures.
How long do you think people should date before they get married? Or do you, I heard you say, you're a faith-based counselor. Okay. Is marriage the definite, you have to do this in order to date? Is it okay to just date and be in a long-term relationship and never get married? How long should you date before you get married? I mean, is that a deal breaker if I've been with somebody 5 years and he hasn't proposed to me, but we literally live married? Is that bad? What is that?
Yeah, I think that's according to your own individual choice. I won't say that that's bad. There's some downfalls to quote living with the person. I think before you get married, there's a false sense of comfort there that's not real, because once you've crossed that marital, and you all understand as a man, once you've crossed that threshold of saying I do, it's a totally different feeling. It's not something I can really describe. It's for the people who have done that, right? You feel different. You feel totally different. So it's not a matter of is it bad or is it wrong. It's something that's very uniquely sacred. And so when you talk about how long should you date, that's really an individual decision. I think you need to be able to have a comfortable feeling of a person based on who you are, right?
I just hear people saying, like,
excuse me.
I hear people kind of just making people feel bad. Like, girl, he ain't asked you to marry him yet. Men know what they want already, and you waiting on a ring, and you stupid for being with him, and you a placeholder and all of that kind of stuff. What determines that? Somebody's opinion, or is that a thing? Like, is it a thing? Like, I mean, just in my opinion, and I'm gonna just be honest with you, I grew up in church. Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. Every Sunday, Wednesday Bible study, I was there. Or
know about it.
Before I left for the military, my mom was like, and I wasn't 18 yet. I was getting ready to turn 18, but my mom said you can stay out overnight if you go to church in the morning. That was the deal, for me to stay out all night. And I'm literally about to leave here and go to the military in 2 days. You know what I mean? But the thing was, you're going to church. So, so I get that. But my thing is, to me, and this is just my personal opinion, I believe that God sees the union. Whether you walk down the aisle or not, because I don't need to spend $20,000 or however much money to say that I'm with this man that God sees. I want to be in this relationship with this man, and I'm praying for this man, and we're together. Okay, so what is it that can give other people the determination or that mindset to say, hey, your relationship is not good. He's never going to marry you. I mean, it's a lot of people that live married. They don't have no intentions on breaking up. They don't have any. Maybe they had they watched their parents. They were married, and they watched their parents go through things as a married, and they like, I'm never getting married, but I love this man or I love this woman. Yeah. But what gives other people that, what do you call that when you degrade somebody's situation because it's not the ideal one? Sure. Whose idea is that? Like, who determines that relationship is bad because it hasn't sprouted a wedding?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think you said it just there. That's just the thing. A wedding is totally and completely different from a marriage. Right. And so, yeah, you spend $2 and get married in your home if that's what you want. It's not about the wedding. And I think a lot of people get caught up in the wedding where there's there's thousands of dollars spent. There's, thousands, of hiring all these vendors and venues and things of that sort. That has nothing to do at all with a marriage. Right. And so, even in my situation, my husband, who we've been friends for the last 27 years, but we've only been married for 3, right? Because he wasn't ready to marry. Love him to pieces. He loved me. I got to a point where I questioned myself. Well, maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe no. My dad said, no, you're better than good. You're great. He was not ready to get married. He always said, I want to marry you. I'm just not ready to marry. And I am so grateful that we did not get married 27 years ago because I don't know if we would have lasted. And if we did, we'd have probably had a lot of tumultuous times because that's not what he wanted to do. I wanted to do it. I was ready, fresh out of college. I was ready. Like, let's do this. That's not what he wanted to do. So we did it. Life took us in different paths in different directions or whatever. But fortunately, by the grace of God, brought us back together. And when he came to me in 2018 and said, hey, this is what I want to do, it leaves me speechless because for a person to want to do what you want to do, when we're talking about marriage, remember I said that's, to me now, it's one of the most sacred institutions that you can enter into. You want to do it? You want to do it too? Let's do this. And so we've always loved each other, right? But that was not what he was ready to do. And he didn't, right? And so now it's the relationship. Well, we're married on a friendship because we've been friends, like I said, for almost 27 years. But the love has grown, the trust is there, but the marriage is so much stronger because he was ready. Right. Now remember, I've been ready. I'm not putting them out there, love them to pieces. But when you have those two collaborative efforts coming together, and so it's not a matter of how long should you date, it's when the person's ready. And if that person's not ready, if that's not what you're willing to do to wait, then you move on. You respectfully move on. And that person will have to deal with the aftermath of you moving on. Maybe you break their heart or maybe you've done them a favor. But you don't live your life predicated on the other, waiting around to see. It's not about a ring. A ring is a piece of jewelry. It signifies something, yes. It's not about the wedding. It's not about any of that. Trust me, it's not about any of that, right? It's about two people who are committed to each other, who are entered into an institution that's God ordained, where it's those three people, God and that man and woman, right? And so I think it's really important that we be mindful of that, because again, those social norms, you should be married by the time you get out of school. You should be, you should go into grad school, or now you should get a house, or you should have 2 children and a white picket fence around your house. Who says who? I think you asked a question. That's the problem. You cannot allow the world to set the standards for yourself. But we do it so easily. No, this is who I married. This is what I wanted to do. I noticed he didn't give you a diamond. He gave you a ruby. Well, this is what I liked. Right. I noticed you don't have a ring on at all. Well, maybe it's because we couldn't afford one. But that's whose business is it? Right. Right. Again, that's the other downfall of social media. We tell too much. So we're opening up the opportunity to be ridiculed. You're in a world wide web. Think about what I'm saying. You're in a world wide web. Anybody in the world, for the most part, could have access to what you're posting. Yeah, I know we have our social media friends, but even those groups can be robust. And you're wondering why people, and you're getting upset when people are critical of you. Well, you just put your most intimate business on a worldwide platform,
Yes.
and wondering why people have comments, because that's what we do. We comment. We have opinions.
Yeah, and this is so crazy because I hate, like, we are really having a good conversation. We have a few minutes left, and I was like, I got 20 more questions to ask. You know what I mean? It starts to get really good,
Yeah.
so I got a couple more questions to ask, and then we're gonna, I hate this. We need like a 3-hour show, but okay, what would you tell a new couple getting into a relationship? What advice would you give that couple?
Okay. Yeah, great question. For our new folks, whether it's in marriage or in a relationship, love yourself first. Really know who you are at any age. It's not an age thing or whatever. But when I say really know who you are, know what works for you, right? If you're a homebody and you're hooking up with a person who enjoys going out the nightlife, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't try to force that person to do what you do, right? I think that's what happens. We try to make people conform and then get upset when they don't do what we. No, you knew I was a homebody when you met me, but how did I know you were a homebody? You had to have shared that. So honesty is going to be real important. Because I like him, I like her. I'm gonna get myself dressed up because I know they always like to be out, or they like to go to, to a lounge or a club or a speakeasy or whatever. But if I don't like that, I'm gonna tell you I really don't like that. Now I'll go from time to time, and I'm okay with you going and hanging out with friends, but I don't really like that. But because we're afraid that the person's gonna move on and date somebody else, well, let me get myself together. But I really can't stand that, right? And so I think to our newer couples or people who are meeting for the first time, be honest. That is actually a great time to tell. I don't know you. I don't know you from Adam, so I'm about to tell you, oh no, I don't like cigarette smoke, so I'm probably not going to be able to date you because I noticed you smoke. That's okay. I just met you. How am I that committed to a total stranger? And again, we want to link up so quickly. Everyone you meet is not going to be your spouse. Everyone you meet is not going to be your guy or your woman. It's not going to be your person. It's just, you're going to meet a plethora of people if that's what you so choose. That's why you should date. I'm not saying you need to be promiscuous, or I'm not encouraging you to just be out there, Wild Willie style. But at the same time, know who you are, know what you like. Like, I like quiet. I don't like for the radio to be loud in my car. I like to be at home. I like to go out from time to time, but you will never catch me shutting down a lounge. And I'm not dogging people that do that. That's fine. I just like the quiet comfort of my home. Right? So I'm with the person who equally likes the same. Now, we'll go out. We do date night. I think that's important. But we are so fine chilling at the crib. We are so fine with each other because that's what we like. We're honest with that. Right? I don't like horror movies. I don't like movies where people are getting killed. I don't like that. But if you like that, I'll just go in the other room. But maybe tonight we need to watch a comedy because that's what I like. So there is some giving and taking. But don't try to change the essence of who the person is. That's who you are, and that's what makes you unique. So again, stop trying to conform, but we try to acquiesce. Oh, I see she's wearing, a pretty brown. Well, I don't like brown, so I'm not gonna wear brown. Right? It's gonna make me uncomfortable. I don't want to wear my hair in a bun. I want to wear it out. And I'm not saying to not appease each other from time to time. That's okay, right? You entice each other with different things. I'm a super conservative person. That's just who I am. Now, I may spice it up from time to time, but it might take me out of my comfort zone because then it would change who I am. Oh, Beth, she's conservative. That's a part of my personality. Same way with your spouse. But when you're meeting a person in the earlier stages, you have to be truthful. Even as your relationship matriculates and it gets seasoned, still be truthful. Well, man, it was a time I really enjoyed hanging out at home. But you know what? I kind of want to get out a little bit more. Be truthful. Things do change. You change. We're humans. Our lives become versatile and we ebb and flow. But just be honest. Stay true to yourself.
And what would you tell a couple who is having problems, a long-term couple who kind of, they ready to call it quits, Beth?
Okay.
What would you tell them what advice would you give them to keep their marriage together or let it go?
Great question. One of the things I would say initially is go back to the essence of the why you got together in the first place. Go back to the original, what was the spark, right? Was it, and hopefully it was something of substance. It wasn't just like, oh, I like the way you wore your hair, or, you know, you had some pretty legs, or, you know, he was, you know, very, you know, he was built or whatever, because those things are very shallow and very fleeting, right? We all change. We look different. You know, I don't have nearly as much hair as I did 20 years ago, right? And, you know, I may have put on a few more pounds than what I did when you met me. So hopefully you didn't use those things. I mean, I think naturally, because we are carnal creatures, we're made of clay. So we look at with the naked eye like, oh, you're handsome, you're you know, you're pretty. That's okay. But go back to the substance. Hopefully there was something of substance that attracted you to the person beyond the physical, right? You were just so compassionate. You're such a giver. Go back to the original essence of what brought you together. And if you can go back to that and work toward that, aside from the way you look now, or the cancer has caused your body to be slightly deformed, or the stresses of life have caused you to slip into depression, if you can kind of not so much ignore those things, but if you can kind of put some blinders on and look beyond that and just go back to the essence of what brought you together in the first place, there's going to be your hope, and build from that. And I'm hopeful that you have that, because if you didn't have those things of substance, it's probably going to be difficult for you to remain in a healthy state. It's not that it's not a complete wash. It's going to be a little bit more work is going to have to be put forward.
All right, wow. Beth. Tell our viewers what your business is, what your the name of your business, and you're taking new clients, and how they can contact you.
Sure. Thank you. So Pace & Associates Counseling Center, we're located at 18444 West 10 Mile in the city of Southfield. Taking not only do I take in-person appointments, but also offer the virtual through telehealth. A lot of times people schedules or the distance to the office is not feasible, so I will allow that is a service that I offer. So you can call the office directly, area code first 248-702-4145. That's again 248-702-4145. Or you can go to my website. I have a pretty robust website you can visit there to see other services. Not only do I offer counseling, but professional coaching and some other things that I offer there. You can visit the website. It's www.paceandassociates.com. That's Pace, P-A-S-E, and associates.com. That's 24/7, so you can go online and just look me up and look a little bit more about me and the services that I provide. Or again, you can email me at beth@paceandassociates.com. That's my name, B-E-T-H, at Pace, P-A-S-E, and associates.com. Or again, you can call the office to make an appointment, 248-702-4145. Love to be able to work with you. Or even if you just want to call and get a 15-minute phone consultation, I'm happy to do that too, to see if you're a good fit for me and I'm a good fit for you. So happy to service you and your families.
Thank you so much, Beth. I mean, I have a million more questions, but I know Nev is going to kill me, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. But we would love to have you back on the show. I know I was telling you about we're going to do some segments on mental health coming up soon, and we're going to talk about addiction. We would love to have you back in a different capacity, maybe not talking about couples, but just, you know, the mental health and, you know, how people can deal with addiction, and we like that. If you could.
Sure, I'd be so happy to do it. Happy to do. Like I said, my whole premise is to encourage, enlighten, and inspire. So however I can do that, whatever platform I'm given, I take that as truly an honor. So thank you both for having me. Really been a pleasure here.
Thank you for visiting and talking with us. Lots swirling around in my head right now, you know. The things that you shared, I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you.
Me too. We might have some, you know, we might have to make an appointment because I don't want to beat him up like physically. I'm going.
Good kid.
All right, right, y'all. So we just had our last episode, I believe, of love and relationships, but it's definitely not the last episode. So keep that in mind. We will be talking about different things. Love and relationships might come back again. I mean, we're human, so we definitely want to talk about what you guys want to hear about. So if that's something that you want to hear about, please let us know. Drop a comment on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video. Beth, executive director of Pace and Associates, I mean, she really dropped some pretty good nuggets on us.
Yes, she did.
If you're in a relationship, if you're struggling, or if it's going well, I'm sure it could, you could talk to somebody either way. That could be helpful. Maybe you're dealing with something that you don't necessarily have to deal with, or it's something you don't want to deal with alone. You guys heard her say that people come and maybe they talked about it the first time. So, on her couch. So if that's happening, please give her a call. Again, that's Pace and Associates Counseling Center. Google it, rewind, go back and get the number, whatever you got to do. But let's keep these relationships thriving, because kids need families. They need their moms. They need their dads. They need everybody just working together in the house. Because remember, a couple of weeks ago, we had the village conversation, which is very important. And these kids need us. But it's also important not to just stay together for the kids. So what can you do to mend the relationship or keep your relationship strong and healthy? Whatever it takes, right?
Absolutely.
You have to do whatever it takes, because remember, even if before you get married, if this is somebody that you want to marry, what are you doing to make sure that that's going to be a solid thing? And if it's somebody that you did marry, you said that this is the thing, this is your person. You said that you were going to stay together, better or worse, sickness and health, richer and richer. You said that. So hey, let's what can we do to just make that happen? So this has been the Live, Love, Laugh, the podcast. Okay, I want to make sure I emphasize that, because sometimes I leave that the out at the end, but this is the podcast. Live, Love, Laugh, the podcast. Subscribe, like, and share. Okay, don't forget, tell a friend, leave some comments. We're going to be here next week. Oh, our new release day is on Wednesdays. So make sure that you checking in on Wednesdays at 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock p.m. on YouTube. Make sure that you making that bell ring, because this one is going to be an episode you don't want to miss.
That's right.
This one is important.
That's right. And it's 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for those that are in other time zones.
All right. Yeah.
All right. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace.